Hi, I'm Jamie from ESL Teacher 365, and in today's live video, I'm going to do a little training on what are some of the secrets of the online teaching industry and some solutions to help you with some of the issues and problems with it. If you could share where you are watching from, either if you're joining us today live or if you're catching up on the replay, I always like to know where people are watching from, so feel free to share that. And there will be live Q&A at the end of the training today, so you can leave any questions that you have as they come up during the training. Just leave them in the comments, and I will get to them at the end. If you're catching up on the replay, I also will come in and answer any questions that you have, so please feel free to leave them in the comments. And if we haven't met before, I am an online teacher. I've been teaching online since 2020, but I've been an ESL and dance teacher since about 2007 is when I first started. And I'm excited to share this training with you today. I also mentor teachers, whether you want to teach abroad or online. But enough about me. Let's get into the training today. So, what they don't tell you about online teaching. We'll go through a few different categories. If you're on my email list, you know what the different categories are because I let you know. And talk about the problems, and then I'll share some solutions for each point. So, this will give you an idea of kind of what's going on in the online teaching industry, and then what you can do to help with these issues or problems. The first category is online teaching pay. And this is a big one because if you're trying to find an online teaching position, maybe you've been looking on different Facebook groups, a lot of times the companies don't list the pay, which is very sketchy. And obviously, that's something that we want to know what it is. So, here are some of the typical issues with online teaching pay. First of all, you might not always be paid the full amount. You might see it advertised as, for example, $12 an hour, but you may find that you're actually only taught for the minutes that you are spent teaching. This is common on sites like Cambly, where they will pay you if you have a conversation per minute. And in that way, you might not get that full hour's pay because if your conversation isn't a full hour, you're only getting paid for those minutes that you are spending with your student. So that's something that you want to look at when you're applying to these different companies. Are you actually getting that guaranteed amount per hour, or is it on a per minute basis? Also, if you're a non-native speaker, your pay rate is usually less than native speakers. And I would say, in general, it's about half of what native speakers are getting. So if you see a company advertising, $12 to $20 per hour, unfortunately, if you're not from a country that's considered native English speaking, like the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Ireland, you might be getting half or even less. So I will be talking about non-native speakers later on in this training, so stay tuned, but that is an issue. Also, if you're teaching on a marketplace, this could be something like Amazing Talker, Preply, italki, Verbling, even OutSchool. They are going to take a commission. The lowest commission I've seen is about 15%, and the highest is 33%. This just means that for every hour you spend teaching, you are typically setting your rate. So, whatever your rate is, the company is going to keep a percentage of your pay. And they say that this is to help with marketing your classes, using their platform, messaging students. So, that's why some teachers do end up going freelance because they don't like this commission. But it's just something to be aware of. It's great that you can charge your own rates, but you're not actually keeping everything that you're making. Some more issues with online teaching pay: taxes. And of course, disclaimer, I'm not a tax accountant, so you need to talk to a tax professional. But in general, these companies and marketplaces are not taking out taxes, so that's something that you need to plan for on your own. So talk to your accountant, look at your financial records, and see how much you need to take out of each payment, what percentage. Also, for online teaching, you're not typically an employee. You're going to be an independent contractor or a freelancer, which means that you're not getting any sort of health benefits, retirement. Those, again, are things that you need to plan for on your own. And a big issue with online teaching pay when it comes to freelancing is imposter syndrome, feeling like you can't charge your worth or you can't charge a lot for your classes. But you have expenses too as a freelancer. You're paying for your platform, probably your email marketing, things like that. So you need to look at what those costs are, the value that you provide your students, and be able to charge enough. So those are the issues. Let's go over some of these solutions. For solutions, you can start with companies, but I would not recommend teaching with online companies long term. It's just not very sustainable. The wages are low, they can close at any time. So it's a good place to get experience, and especially if you're a new teacher, a lot of companies maybe don't require as much experience, or there are some companies that don't require a degree. But long term, you want to move towards marketplaces or freelancing. For marketplaces, you don't want to charge too high or too low when starting out. If you are charging too high, you're probably not going to get students because you don't have any sort of ratings yet. And we will talk about that later on in the training today. But if you're charging too low, it's possible that students might see that you aren't, maybe they'll think, not see, but think that you aren't very, your classes aren't quality, something like that. So you want to be somewhere in the middle. You also should be building your own freelance business on the side. Any of these companies, any of these marketplaces can close down at any time. This happened in August of 2021 with big companies like VIP Kid, Q Kids, GoGo Kid. And that was a shock for a lot of people. But if they had been building up their freelance business, they would have had something that they were working on that was their own. For freelancing, when it comes to money mindset, there are some books that you can do, but it's really about having that positive money mindset and really working on that to get past your imposter syndrome. I don't really like to compare myself to other teachers and what they're charging, but sometimes it does help. If you see someone's charging over $100 per hour, take a look at their classes. What are they offering? Why are they charging that much? How are they getting their students? And that can be a bit motivating and inspiring. The next category would be hiring freezes and saturation. So hiring freezes basically means that companies are accepting applications and then suddenly they stop. So they are no longer accepting applications and they will either put current applications on hold or they just won't respond. Saturation is meaning that there are too many teachers and not enough students. So the ratio between teachers and students isn't equal. And so there isn't as much work as teachers are looking for. So the problems are that, of course, companies and marketplaces, they make the rules so they can pause hiring at any time. This has been happening over the summer months. Some companies like Tweenix, they just don't have as many students over the summer because it's EU based and a lot of Europeans are on vacation in July and August. And so it kind of picks back up after September, October. So that's just something to be aware of. If you're not hearing about your application for months and months, that means that the company is probably on a hiring freeze. And if there's too many teachers, you just won't get students. You have to think that, of course, there needs to be enough students to match with the teachers. So those are some of the issues when it comes to hiring freezes and saturation. What are the solutions? You need to apply to as many companies and marketplaces as possible because these companies and marketplaces usually don't announce that there's a hiring freeze. You just won't hear about your application for weeks or months at a time. So apply to as many things as you are eligible for. Also, if you haven't heard about your application within a week or so, you can reapply by fixing your intro or demo video, working on your written application, and then reapplying. There will be limits sometimes on how many times you can reapply, but some companies and marketplaces will let you keep reapplying. So just keep going and trying it out and see what you can get. It also helps to choose a specialty to stand out. If you scroll through some of these marketplaces, you'll see a lot of people are just offering conversation classes. That doesn't really stand out. So try and choose something that you can specialize in, like business English, test prep, accent reduction. So my profiles on Cambly and Preply, those places, I let them know that I have experience as a test prep teacher. And that I get a lot of messages about because students are looking for help with different exams. So I stick out more than someone that is just offering general conversation classes. So think about what you want to specialize in. Another common issue with online teaching is, of course, technical difficulties. If you have a poor connection or you lose your connection, you might get a penalty, you might get bad reviews. So it's very important to have that strong connection, have it wired in, and check it every so often. Of course, sometimes there's not much you can do if there's a storm. I know here in Australia, when it gets windy, our connection gets pretty bad, but just know that that may be an issue. Students may also have some issues. There's something called split Zoom. So they may be in a different Zoom meeting waiting for you to arrive and let them in. And then for your Zoom, you can't really see that they're there. This is why a lot of the different platforms have a messaging system. And that way you can contact your students. Hey, where are you? I'm in class. And then you usually just have to restart the meeting and it kind of works out. But that's just something to be aware of. Students might be joining from a tablet, which means they might not have all of the capabilities of your digital whiteboard. They could be joining from a car. I've had students join from the swimming pool, a horse farm, like a Native American reservation, so the connection wasn't very good. So this just means that it's going to be more challenging to teach your classes if the connection's bad, if you can't hear your students. Even if your connection is good, if theirs isn't the best, that's a problem. And you might have technology just stop working on you in the middle of class. Last week, I believe, my microphone just stopped working during one of my outschool classes. Luckily, I had a second one, so I was able to switch it out pretty quickly, but you never know what's going to happen. Your camera's going to break or things just happen. So what are these solutions to some of these technical difficulties? For the internet, you always want to have some sort of backup source, so maybe like a mobile hotspot, and when possible, have a wired connection. Some companies and marketplaces require you to have a wired connection. They won't let you teach over Wi-Fi, so be aware of that. But if you're traveling, this can be challenging too because you can't anticipate what the connection is going to be like. So that just means that it will take some testing maybe the day before you teach or a few hours before you're getting ready to teach. Also, another tip is to keep your Zoom and your computer updated. I've also had issues on OutSchool where my Zoom wasn't updated or my students wasn't updated, and there were issues because of that. So I always make sure mine is. I check probably 2 weeks, every week, every 2 weeks. And I also, if students have problems, I will ask them to take a look and see if their Zoom is updated. Also with your computer, you might have a little, warning to keep your computer updated. Make sure you do all of that. Have a backup microphone, backup headphones. Another option if your camera breaks. For companies, they will penalize you for any small little thing. So you just want to make sure that you have a backup. And also message your students about staying updated and what some of the best practices are. If you notice that your students are always joining from the car or their connection isn't very good, write them a message and let them know what they should do, how they can fix this problem so you can both have a better class online. The next category would be reviews, algorithms, and profiles. Some of the problems are reviews, and that's typically you're getting stars. So, normally between 1 and 5 stars. If you're getting 5 stars, this can be great for your profile. It can really boost it in the algorithm. If you're not, if you're getting 1 stars, that can basically eliminate you from the search results. So, reviews can be very important. Of course, star ratings are subjective, and a lot of these companies don't really tell families what's the difference between a 1 star review and a 5 star review. And teachers don't even really know this either. So that can be a challenge. More reviews means you have more visibility, and this makes it difficult to get started for new teachers. When I first got started on OutSchool, I was lucky because that was during 2021 and everyone was online. So I was able to build up the amount of reviews that I had very fast. But now for new teachers getting started on OutSchool, it's quite challenging. So a little hack for that is to have people that you know have their kids take your classes and review it, just so you can get a few good reviews to kind of boost your profile and get started. Also, teachers without optimized profiles will get ignored. This means if you don't have a video for your class, if you don't have a good title that makes students want to click on it, if you don't have a good image that you've created, you're probably just going to get lost in all of the other classes on the platforms. So, what are the solutions to these issues? First, you can ask for reviews and also explain the rating system. I personally haven't ever asked for reviews, but I know that some teachers do. And I think it's a lot harder to get started now than it was when I did. But you can just say, it really helps me if you review my class and kind of explain, this is what a 1 star class would look like, a 3 star class, a 5 star class. And then just let them know if there's anything I can do to make this class a 5 star for you, please let me know. So send your families a message. Also, just be patient and understand that it takes time to build your profile. When I first got started on some of the marketplaces, of course, I saw all the teachers who had 1,000 reviews and all of these different things, and it was hard to compete with them. But teachers kind of come and go, and some of those teachers have left the platform, and I've been able to grow a lot. So it just depends on how long you're willing to stick it out. Also, optimize your profile. If you are able to make a video, make sure it's high quality, try and make it a bit unique and really speak to your learners. Your written description, make sure it includes your experience for your students, what they can expect, your education, all of that. If you have any sort of specialty, highlight that there. Also, talk about the results. You can include things like student testimonials. If you've helped students pass an official exam, include that, how many, and just share what students can really expect from your class experience. What are they going to get out of it? How are they going to enjoy it? Policies and getting fired. Unfortunately, different policies, this could be like minimum hours required or the pay rates. Those things can change for companies and marketplaces with little notice or no notice. And you can also be fired for being absent or late. Usually it's maybe, a few times, 3 times, 4 times, but after that, you're done. Doesn't matter how long you've been teaching on these platforms. You need to be careful of always logging in early, always checking your equipment before you start teaching. And you might see on some Reddit forums and other teaching forums that some people get fired seemingly for no reason. Maybe they've taught on a platform for 3 or 4 years, and one day they are just fired. They can't log in or they're sent an email. And this happens often when the companies are trying to change the pay scale. So some of their top teachers, they'll just get rid of them so that they can hire more teachers at a cheaper rate. So again, this is why building your freelance business on the side is really important, because that's the only thing you really have control over. Some solutions are to understand the late and absent policies. How many times can you miss? If you're sick, what do you do? Is there some sort of support email that you need to let them know? So I've had times where I have been sick or I've had to go to the doctor, and I know how to let my families know, but I always let the company know as well so that I am not penalized, because you can't really cancel classes such short notice. Also, teach for more than one company or marketplace. This way, if you're fired randomly from one, it's not taking such a hit because you have other options. And like I said before, build your own freelancing business on the side so you have something that is always going to be there. Also, if you're working for different companies, make sure you have a time buffer. I used to teach dance on Outschool and All School, and so I had to be switching between the different platforms. So I always had some sort of break, about 15 minutes, just to write my feedback on one platform and get ready to teach on the second one. You don't want to have back-to-back classes when you have to be switching between two platforms. Your schedule and burnout. New teachers, it's very common to want to open every single slot that you have, and this might mean that you have classes at very random times. You might have some early morning, some around lunchtime, some very late in the evening. And while that's a good idea at first to kind of get an idea of which times are popular, you also need to plan your schedule a little bit. It's not very good to just have these random times that you're teaching. That will lead to burnout. Also, if you find that you're teaching back to back to back to back classes, that also leads to burnout. And that's also something common for new teachers. And in general, teaching for companies just isn't sustainable. You're not making enough usually to make it worth it for all of the hours that you are working. So, what are some of the solutions? You want to schedule in different breaks. I do have breaks between classes. I schedule time for lunch break, things like that. And then it's always good to get up, go for a walk, go do a workout, whatever you want to do, but be away from your computer for a little bit. Set your working hours. Think about your schedule. If you are wanting to wake up a little bit slower, maybe you don't start your first class until a little bit later, but you want to have a set time that you're working as if it were a traditional school. Also, you can teach group classes or switch to freelancing if you want to charge more so that you're not constantly working for companies. And you can also consider some passive income ideas like Teachers Pay Teachers. This is where you create teaching materials and sell them. And I do have a video on my channel about passive income ideas for teachers, so you can check that out after this training if you like. Okay, non-native speakers. What are some of the problems? Companies in general are usually looking for native speakers, and this means that either they just will not hire you because you don't fit their passport requirements, or they're going to pay you unfairly. And as I said before, it's usually about half of what native speakers are making, or even less than that. I've seen companies paying non-native speakers $1.50 an hour, $2, $3 an hour, which is absolutely insane. Non-native speakers, I do see, waste a lot of time applying to companies that won't hire them. Please don't do this. I get so many messages about, I've applied to all these companies and no one's hiring me. But when I look at the companies that they applied to, they all require a passport from a native English speaking country. So don't waste your time with these companies. They will not hire you. Also, in general, there's a lot of discrimination in this industry, whether you're teaching abroad or teaching online. Certain families and people are saying, oh, I want a native speaker to teach my son, or they want to learn from a native speaker. And that does cause a lot of issues. But there are some things that you can do. First, I would say if you're a non-native speaker, teach on marketplaces or freelance only. Do not bother with the companies. Again, they won't hire you or the pay is awful. So, marketplaces and freelance, you can actually earn more. Choose a specialty. If you want to do something like business English or test prep, this will help you stand out more. Don't just offer conversation classes. Also, another thing that you can do if you're a non-native speaker, if you freelance teach, you can actually charge in a stronger currency. So I've seen teachers who are maybe located in Latin America. They target people in, a different region that has a better cost of living, higher cost of living, and then they charge in US dollars or in euros, for example. So that can also help you out. And if you are a non-native speaker and you're worried about your accent, you can always work with an accent reduction coach to help you get a specific type of accent, which can help you get hired as well. Okay, I think this is our last category before we get into the Q&A. So just a reminder, if you have any questions that have come up during this training, leave them in the comments and I will get to them then. So if you're feeling stuck working for companies, this might look like burnout from back-to-back one-on-one classes or just low pay. You feel like you're teaching all these hours, but you're not making much. Companies can close at any time. They can change your pay, so it's not very stable. With companies, you also usually cannot get a visa to live abroad while teaching online. This just means that if you want to teach and travel, it might not be possible to do this if you're working for companies, but there are other ways to do that. And you really don't have any sort of contact with students outside of the platforms. So if you want to offer your own freelancing classes, you're usually not allowed to message your current students on these platforms and let them know. So again, if you're building up your own business on the side, you can't really rely on just companies. The solutions for this would be to start a freelancing business and charge your worth. You can start to teach intensive courses. You can do small groups and charge a bit more. You can do pre-recorded courses, whatever you would like, because it's your business. Teaching group classes instead of one-on-one and charging per student is, of course, going to get you more per hour. And if you do start a freelancing business, this will help qualify you for digital nomad visas. So these visas typically allow you to work between 3 months and some up to 5 years in another country. And you can qualify if you have a freelancing business. It does depend on each country. They kind of have their own rules, and this will be maybe you have to meet a minimum income requirement, and some of them, they'll want you to have had your business for 12 months at least, but it's something to work towards and know that, okay, if I want to teach in Indonesia and work online, maybe I can look into the digital nomad visa. And finally, start an email list so you always have contact with students. Obviously, if you're on companies, this isn't allowed, but if you're using social media or word of mouth to attract different students, start building up your email list. This is something that you own and you'll always have contact with your students. If you need more help, I do have an online course that goes over teaching online. It talks about companies, marketplaces, and freelancing. This is great for new teachers. Maybe you just did your TEFL and you're not sure what to do next. It's called Teach Online in 10 Days. There are 10 video lessons and different PDFs to support you. So you can go to eslteacher365.com/course. I've had about 60 teachers take this course so far, and people have said that they found it very, very helpful. If you want some personalized help, you can also fill out my survey. If you want to teach abroad or online, it's just eslteacher365.com/survey. Okay, let's get into Q&A. So if you have any questions, all right, let's see. So we have a question here. I want to know, how much can I charge for 1 hour if I do part-time teaching? So this will depend on how you are teaching. If you're teaching for companies, it's going to be a set rate of pay per hour, and that usually could be the same for if you're teaching one-on-one or small group. You're usually just paid the same flat rate. If you're teaching on a marketplace, you are setting your own rates. I would say in general, most marketplaces are one-on-one teaching, and remember that they take out a commission. So you need to factor that in, but you're welcome to charge whatever you like. I know I get a lot of questions about how much should I charge? It depends on your qualifications, your experience. So now, with my experience, with my qualifications, I would obviously charge a lot more than when I was just starting out. But an idea to kind of hack this is to look at the other tutors on the site that you're using, whether it's Preply or italki. Look at the different profiles, find someone who has similar experience to you and see what they're charging. Of course, you can always charge more, but just a little bit of trial and error. And to give you an idea too, when I started teaching on OutSchool, I started with $8 per 30-minute class per student. And now, after 4 years, I have worked up to $16 per 30-minute class per student. So it takes time to build up, but you can definitely build up your prices. For freelance teaching, it's up to you. There are absolutely no rules to follow. So as long as you are providing your students with value, providing them results, you can charge as much as you want. And it really depends on if you're helping business people or if you're just offering basic conversation. Obviously, you can charge more for business. So just think about that and what you want to charge. All right, let's see. Oh, Matt is joining from the UK, 11 p.m. Oh my goodness. That's crazy. Oh, and Mohammed is also a new Aussie in Spain. Awesome. Very cool. All right, let's see. We got some more questions and comments. I love how you diversify your earnings from actual teaching to courses to resources. I think that's super important for long-term success. Yes. So if you're just teaching, I would say you can diversify a bit by teaching in different ways and also offering different resources on Teachers Pay Teachers, the tutor resource, things like that. But of course, you can also have a membership, you can have courses. You do have to put on your business hat a little bit to think about what you can offer. Okay, Scott says, you know what Preply takes into account while reviewing a teacher application, aside from the usual requirements they list. Your video is going to be part of the application process for Preply. You want to answer every single question that they ask. So they'll have some criteria of what to include in your video. They'll have a specific length. So if your video is too short or too long, they basically just won't look at your application. So follow all of the criteria and make sure you look at some examples of tutors and what they have written for their applications too, because you'll be able to scroll through and kind of see what people have written, because the application is essentially what gets posted on their site to attract students. So another tip for the Preply application is to keep your ideal student in mind. It's not really that you're making this video just to get hired. This is going to be posted on the site so that students can watch your video. So that's also something that they take into account. Are they watching a video that was created to get hired for the HR, or is it for the student? Because that's essentially what it's going to be used for later on. All right, Ray says, good morning, hello. Puzzle piece, love that. Hey, glad I made it, welcome. So if you have any other questions, just let me know. I am also creating a guide. I started working on it yesterday, a list, we shall say, of all the different requirements for different online companies and marketplaces. So I've basically spent time looking at what the pay is, what the classes are like. So are they one-on-one? Are they small group? How many students in each class? How long are they? What are some of the requirements to teach on there? Do you need to have a specific passport, a degree, a teaching certificate? And I will have all of the information in one place because you can definitely find it yourself looking online, but it's scattered all over and a lot of it is quite outdated. So I have it all in one place, and I also have some extra resources for anyone interested in freelance teaching as well. So that will be coming soon. If you're on my email list, you will get that. And I will also, of course, share it here on YouTube. All right. As a reminder, if you have any other questions, if you're catching up on the replay or you joined us live and something happened, I will leave my email so that you can send me a message if you have something else come up. Or, of course, you can also just leave me a comment. So if you can email me, jamie@eslteacher365.com with any sort of questions that you have. I hope this training was helpful. If you have any other ideas for future trainings, please let me know, and I will see you next time. Happy teaching. See you next time.